Behind you, is the AG still with us, Eric Schmitt?
Yep.
Eric,
Yep.
We're seeing one after the other. It's adult males coming off of this bus. What is the story here? They're just busing adult males to big cities?
Well, look, Maria, you and I were down at the border. I've been down there twice. You talked to the Border Patrol agents. The cartels are running the show down there. In the economic value of the human trafficking alone is well over $100 million a week. That doesn't even address the fentanyl that's streaming across, the lawlessness that's streaming across. Every state is a border state. Yeah. Missouri's feeling the repercussions of this. And so, again, I think for these so-called Democrat leaders, they need to understand that this is a serious issue. It's affecting every American across the country, and there's repercussions to this open borders and amnesty policy.
I think that's one of the most important keys that you just mentioned, that the dangerous drug cartels are the ones deciding who gets into America and who doesn't. James Freeman, I just got back my 5th time at the border last week. And once again, I was witnessing the guns, the drugs, the human trafficking going on. We're looking at these people coming off these. I don't know if it's the right move to send all of these people to New York from Texas. I'm not saying that is the case, but what are we going to do? It's all adult males.
And it's the chaos and lawlessness at the border. It prevents the obvious solution. If the president ever wants to take this up, he goes to Republicans in Congress and he says, OK, we'll build Trump's wall. And in return, we get a big pathway for various categories of legal migration. If he actually wanted that.
Yep.
It seems clear he doesn't really want that. What he wants is the politics. And so people are wondering who's coming across the border. I would imagine if we had a lawful process, many of these people are coming here, the vast majority, to work, to live a good life. Maybe they want to be citizens. Maybe they want to eventually go back home. I think, obviously, we have a situation in the U.S. where there's a labor shortage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We want new immigrants. We know how much they add to the economy, to our culture, to our life. But the chaos, uncertainty, and needless suffering, and you've covered that a lot at the border. Yeah. This benefits no one. I don't know what the political benefit the White House sees to doing nothing, but it's just very frustrating hearing guests on your show week after week talk about how, there's no outreach from the White House.
AG, what about that? How come it's so difficult to get an immigration policy straight here? And tell us about the structure in place right now. We issue 1 million green cards a year. So all of these people are just jumping ahead of the line. And by the way, you mentioned the people who want to come and honest and work, whatever. Don't forget the 900,000 gotaways that we've seen on surveillance camera, that they don't want to get apprehended. They have other intentions, AG.
Yeah, and I think, look, part of having an America First agenda moving forward is, number one, securing the border. And by the way, we've got a lot of struggling Americans right now who are here legally, who were born here, who we ought to retrain to be doing some of these jobs. I'm kind of tired of being told, there's just this elitist mentality that's out there that thinks that an open border policy is somehow humane. You see what's happening at the border. It's a disaster. It's a human rights disaster, that some of the things that the cartels are doing to people, but also being lectured about the importance of the sovereignty of borders, halfway across the world, like in Ukraine, yet they don't do anything about the southern border of the United States. And I think that's the issue that we need to tackle right now, before there's any other discussion about any of this stuff. Secure the border. And I think we need to hold firm on that.
So what about these buses going to New York? I mean, you've got, people coming out off the bus now. Our cameras are rolling, and we've been watching who comes off this bus. It's been largely adult males, AG. Was there a plan in place in terms of bringing kids into the interior of America? Because they talked a lot about the children. They should be allowed to come in, and that's why they wanted to do away with Title 42 in the beginning.
Look, it's a mess. So these are people that they're actually apprehending and sending to New York, and I think bring the reality of the disaster at the border home to places like New York, maybe Martha's Vineyard eventually. I don't know, the folks who are completely out of touch who advocate for this, but would never want this kind of lawlessness in their own communities. But the truth is, now that Remain in Mexico is gone, even though we're battling to keep that in place in court, when people come here illegally and they're seeking asylum, 9 out of 10 of the asylum claims are bogus, by the way. Right now, they're just being released into the interior of the United States saying, here's your court date. Well, guess what? Nobody's coming back for the court date. And so you have a situation where people are just streaming across now. And unless Title 42 is being utilized to send them back, it's a completely open border. It's a flood of illegal immigration. It promotes lawlessness. There's drugs. There's crime. It's a mess. And so we've got to get a handle on that. But this administration has no interest in it. They undid all the great successes President Trump had with border security, and now we're seeing the consequences.
Well, what kind of services are they offered? I mean, let's talk about the pressure on the system, because that's one thing that Eric Adams keeps complaining about. He said, oh, we've got all of these migrants. It's going to impact our health care. It's going to impact our education. So, AG, what are the services that the illegal migrants are offered? I know they get a cell phone, right? They get a free phone is one thing?
You get cash and a cell phone. You're sent wherever. And there is a strain on other states' healthcare systems and the social safety net programs that are in place.
Yeah.
And so that is, by the way, when we bring these lawsuits, Maria, that is the basis, one of the bases of Missouri's standing, right? Because some people say, oh, why is Missouri involved in all these border states? Because there's an economic impact for Missouri taxpayers who have to pay for all of this lawlessness, in addition to the human trafficking. Missouri's taken the lead on cracking down on human trafficking, and so we've seen an increase in that as well.
Yeah, real quick. Go ahead, James.
AG, could I ask you about one of your other legal efforts, which is to investigate the Biden administration for potential First Amendment violations when they are encouraging, persuading, maybe bullying social media companies to censor conservatives? Can you tell us what you've learned and where that stands?
Yeah, so that's a landmark lawsuit that we filed that essentially big government colluding with big tech, right, to deplatform and cancel. And whether it's a Hunter Biden laptop story, whether it's on COVID, those instances, because the Biden administration has said specifically they're flagging and working with the social media companies directly, and the government doesn't get to outsource its censorship. So we had a big ruling 3 weeks ago now that allowed us to get discovery from these social media companies, from the government, from Fauci, from Jen Psaki, from Mary Poppins, all of them. We're the first. This is the first case where we get to. We're the first case where you get to look under the hood.
Yeah.
And I think the Democrats are terrified with this lawsuit, and we're moving forward full steam ahead.
Well,